very good afternoon. We will immediately start with the session. I request Dr. Anand Pathak to start.
Thank you very much. Good morning, everybody. And a very big congratulations to the organizers for putting up such a grand show and inviting very good faculty. Like I just heard Dr. Mahapatra and enjoyed his talk also. And with this session, we are changing gears to gynec oncology, which promises equally challenging and equally rewarding. So my topic today is to talk upon tumor markers in gynec cancers, whether they're diagnostic or prognostic. So in oncology, whenever a cancer is diagnosed, we have to first establish what's the histology, what is the disease burden in terms of stage, what are additional informations like prognosis, how the patient will behave, and what are the treatment options. And all these things are not provided by the biopsy or the histology alone. So we have to rely on other information that we gain from clinical evaluation, imaging, patient factors, and a host of markers which have evolved now in oncology that we call markers of various things which tell us more information about the cancer which is there in the patient. And tumor markers are the markers that are used very frequently in many cancers, including gynecological cancers. So what is a tumor marker? In terms of, it's a chemical substance which is measured quantitatively in body fluids, which is either produced by the tumor or by the host response as a reaction to the tumor. And generally, we measure it either in the blood or fluids, pleural fluid, ascitic fluid, urine, etc. In addition to that, now the definition of a marker in a cancer has broadened to also include the histological markers that we find out by immunohistochemistry, the genetic, epigenetic markers that we find out by doing high diagnostics like molecular pathology, and we find out about mutations, and they give us additional information. For example, we do ER, PR, HER2 in breast cancer, certain other biomarkers in lung cancer, which give an additional information above what we find out by doing imaging and by tissue histology. So in today's talk, I'll be focusing mainly on the serum tumor markers. So when we do a tumor markers, we want to know whether it's diagnostic. It pinpoints the diagnosis to a histology, whether it's prognostic. In addition to that, it should also tell us what is the stage of the disease, what is the disease burden, how the disease will behave, what is the disease status, is the disease under control with the treatment, or is there a recurrence? Would it tell us whether the patient would respond to a particular therapy or not, and whether it can be used to screen normal individuals who have no symptoms. So in gynecological cancer, we have a long list of such serum circulating tumor markers, and most commonly that we use in day-to-day practice are CA125, CEA, AFP, beta-HCG, LDH, and inhibin. And there are a few others which are of academic interest but are of no clinical use today. So coming to ovarian cancers, and you all know that ovarian cancers are broadly divided into epithelial and non-epithelial. And in epithelial, the commonest that we have is high-grade serous carcinoma. And less common, we have the carcinosarcomas, clear cell mucinous endometrioid, borderline ovarian tumors, ovarian germ cell tumor, ovarian sex cord stromal tumors. And the various markers that are very commonly used in clinic is CA125, CEA in mucinous carcinoma, inhibin in sex cord stromal tumors, and AFP beta-HCG in LDH in germ cell tumor. So coming to CA125, I'm sure you would like to know what is the status of CA125 today. It's a glycoprotein which is in the range of 0 to 35 in normal individual. It's not specific to cancer. It can be elevated in many non-cancerous conditions that occur commonly in females. It is also not specific to ovarian cancer. So that's the biggest disadvantage. It can be also seen in many other cancers, including non-gynecological cancers. So, and in adnexal masses, ranging from a very benign tumor, a benign cyst like a functional cyst, to a very stage 4 invasive ovarian carcinoma, you can have varied elevations of this mark. So it's not specific, it's not sensitive, but it's very commonly done. So what is its status in ovarian cancer detection? Is there an absolute cutoff value which tells you that the underlying adnexal mass is an ovarian cancer? No. It is more often found elevated in serous than endometrioid, clear and mucinous. If you have a patient who has a pelvic mass and a high CA125, I'm sure you have to suspect a malignant ovarian tumor, commonly in epithelial, but there is no cutoff value. If the patient is postmenopausal and has any abnormal value, of course your index of suspicion will be very high because the incidence of epithelial ovarian cancer is high as the age increases. But when you have a patient who is premenopausal, then a level cannot guide you whether the underlying adnexal mass is cancer or not. So unless the level is very high, something like 500,000, 2,000, 50,000, but what is a very high level is not defined. A patient who has a level of 2,000 may not necessarily have cancer. Can it be used as a screening tool? No. Screening is badly required in ovarian cancer because most of our patients come late and they have a limited prognosis. So it will be good to find out ways to diagnose them early, but there are no routine screening programs. It is not recommended as a screening tool unless in general population, unless you have a patient who has inherited predisposition. So number of studies have tested CA125 as a screening tool and it fared badly in those studies. So don't do it in any asymptomatic woman for the purpose of screening. Does it have any prognostic or predictive value? Yes, some prognostic and predictive value. Does it have value in recurrence and surveillance? Yes. That is where CA125 is very useful. If you have a patient of ovarian cancer and it was elevated to begin with, you do treatment, it comes down, that helps. And then you do it serially, it will give a lead time of few months before a clinical recurrence occurs. But a raised CA125 does not necessarily mean that you treat the patient. It doesn't define the further treatment, but it makes you alert that patient may have a clinical recurrence soon. So it has a value in picking up recurrence and surveillance. And one more small piece of information, when you do serum markers in a patient suspected to have ovarian cancer, the ovarian cancerous mass could be a primary ovarian cancer or could be Krukenberg from a GI cancer. And if you do CEA and you calculate the CA125 CE ratio, if it's less than 25, you have to get alerted that this could be a Krukenberg and you need to screen the GI tract by doing GI scopies. So coming to some other markers in gynec cancers, there is a long list of the markers which are elevated in various other histologies, which include germ cell tumor, gonadoblastomas, and a long list of sex cord stromal tumor. And only those which are highlighted have some value, like AFP, SCG, LDH are important in germ cell tumor. Inhibin is important in granular cell tumor. AMH is important in granular cell tumor. LDH is important in dysgerminoma and other germ cell tumor. All other markers have plus minus values in other ovarian tumors. So in germ cell tumor, these markers as against CA125 are extremely sensitive, they are extremely specific, they have a high diagnostic value, they aid in surveillance, and they also have prognostic value. So much so that if we have a patient who has a very advanced germ cell tumor, and it's not possible to do a biopsy or establish a tissue diagnosis. If you get a raised AFP or very high SCG value, you can be sure that you're dealing with a germ cell tumor, and that's enough sometimes to go ahead with treatment. In endometrial carcinomas, there is no routine role of doing any kind of serum markers. The traditional endometrioid adenocarcinoma does not have a valuable marker in the serum, except in situations where you have very high risk endometrial carcinoma like serous carcinoma, clear cell carcinomas, undifferentiated carcinoma, carcinosarcoma, where you could consider CA125. If that is high at baseline, you can do a follow-up and that may add a little information. GTN, yes, beta SCG you all know is very valuable. And only thing to remember in GTN is beta SCG exists in many isoforms. So your routine lab sometimes may make a mistake in giving a false positive result or a false negative result. So unless you couple it with a urinary test, you may have patients over-treated or under-treated. So you all know this prognostic scoring system, and the absolute level of beta SCG before treatment is there in the risk calculation. And when you have a patient who has undergone a molar evacuation and do a serial beta hCG level follow-up, and then you can pick up whether the patient has a post-molar GTN. And if the patient has post-molar GTN based on these criteria like there is a plateau or there is a rise or there is a persistence, then you manage those patients. And then during treatment, you again do the follow-up and to see if the patient has a recurrence. This is a patient who had a molar evacuation. Point is not working. An evacuation, and then there was a plateau in the beta hCG values, and patient received chemotherapy, and then the marker normalized, and then patient could be treated successfully. So it has a very specific value in treating as well as monitoring GTN. And then once you have treated the patient, and then it helps you to identify whether the patient is responding, whether the patient has primary resistance, whether the patient responds, then the disease comes back, and whether the patient develops acquired resistance. So you can adapt your chemotherapy from a single agent to a combination to a multi-agent combination. So therefore, beta hCG is very valuable in monitoring and treating GTN. And there are established follow-up guidelines once you have treated a patient of GTN successfully, how frequently to do the hCG levels in the blood as well as in the urine. So then, a very important question. You have a patient who has a suspected adnexal mass, and you have to make a decision or suspect whether this is malignant, and you have to decide whether to go ahead with surgery. And then you have this big question, what should be the extent of surgery? If the mass is malignant, you may be you may be planning to do a staging laparotomy. Or you may end up doing just a mass removal, then the histopathology comes back, you go in again second time, then do a proper staging laparotomy. So all those questions are important because you have to subject the patient to a major surgery. First to make a diagnosis and then do a therapeutic surgery. Now towards that, people have used markers variably. And all these biomarker panels have evolved to guide you. You must have come across these panels like OVA1, which takes into account 4 or 5 factors, OVERA, which takes into account few more factors, ROMA score, which takes into account the CA125 and HE4, and RMI indices from 1 to 4, and ADNEX model. So all these things help you in a patient where you had decided to operate. They don't help you in taking a decision to operate. So if you have decided to operate, then you expect that you will be dealing with a malignancy. And if you do these scores, they would further boost up your confidence to do a proper therapeutic staging laparotomy. So they are not there to help you in a patient to decide whether the underlying mass is malignant or benign. So you must remember when you order these scores, how to interpret them. Inhibin, a simple marker, very specific granular cell tumor, 100%. So it is also elevated in certain other tumors, but its value is in granular cell tumor. You treat the patient with surgery, which is surgical disease. You follow up with inhibin. If it comes back, the level goes up. You have a lead time of at least 1 year before clinical recurrence is documented. And therefore, inhibin is extremely important. So in conclusion, serum tumor markers are an integral part of initial evaluation. You must understand how sensitive and how specific are they. CA125 is not sensitive, not specific. It doesn't pick up stage 1 disease. But germ cell markers are sensitive as well as specific. Most of the tumor markers have some prognostic value, like markers in germ cell tumor. CA125 has a very limited prognostic value. Definite value for all markers to monitor a patient. You have a baseline level, you do serial evaluation. Very simple way to find out if the patient has recurrence. Limited or no value for screening. And there is some value in adnexal mass evaluation. So thank you very much.